It was just after midnight when silence filled the house. Most nights, this was the hour when everything finally seemed calm. The world asleep, the neighborhood quiet, nothing but the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. But that night, something cut through the stillness. A whisper. At first, the mother thought she was dreaming, the kind of half-sleep trick that makes your imagination run wild. But the sound came again, soft, hushed words, like her son was speaking to someone. Her heart skipped. Who could he be talking to at this hour? She slowly slipped out of bed, careful not to make the floorboards creak, straining her ears to catch more of the sound. The whispers grew clearer as she approached her son's room. There was no laughter, no playful tone, just a quiet, steady murmur, as though he was answering questions. The unsettling part? His voice carried pauses, like he was listening to someone else. The door to his room was slightly open, a thin slice of pale moonlight spilling through the crack. She gently pushed it wider. Her son was sitting upright in bed, his head tilted toward the closet. His lips moved, whispering words she couldn't quite make out. His eyes looked wide, unblinking, locked on the dark outline of the closet door. Her pulse quickened. Was this some kind of game? Was he talking to himself? Or was there? Her stomach tightened. Someone inside? She stepped into the room, her voice trembling as she called his name. He didn't respond. He didn't even look at her. It was as though he couldn't hear her at all, trapped in his strange midnight conversation. The air in the room felt colder now, heavy and tense. She forced her steps toward the closet, every instinct screaming to leave, but her love for her son pulling her forward. Her hand reached out, fingers trembling, as she grasped the closet handle. She hesitated, her breath caught in her throat. On the other side of that thin wooden door, was it just clothes and shadows? Or was there something else? Something her son had been whispering to all along? She pulled the door open, and what she saw made her gasp. Her gasp echoed in the silence, but her son didn't flinch. He stayed perfectly still on the bed, eyes still locked on the shadows. The closet door stood open now, and though her gaze darted across the rows of hanging clothes and the pile of toys at the bottom, she saw nothing unusual, nothing that explained why her child had been whispering into the dark. Her chest tightened. She tried again, softly. "Sweetheart, who are you talking to?" Finally, her son blinked and turned toward her. His face was pale, his eyes glassy, like he'd been pulled from a dream. For a moment, he didn't answer. Then he glanced back at the closet before whispering, "He doesn't like when you ask questions." Her blood ran cold. This wasn't the first time she had worried about her son's late-night habits. Over the past few weeks, she'd noticed changes, small at first. He was more withdrawn at school, quieter at dinner, and often seemed tired in the morning, like he hadn't slept. She assumed it was just growing pains or stress. But then came the drawings. At first, she thought nothing of the figures he sketched, shadows with long arms and hollow faces, shapes standing near doors or under beds. But the more she looked, the more one detail unsettled her. The drawings always had a closet in them. Always. Her mother's instincts told her something was wrong, but she struggled to explain it. After all, children had vivid imaginations. Was it possible he had invented an imaginary friend? That was what the counselor suggested. But why would a child's imaginary friend make him whisper at midnight, pale-faced and sleepless? Why would it always involve the closet? Her eyes stayed on her son, her heart pounding louder than the quiet of the house. She sat on the edge of the bed, her hand trembling as she brushed his hair back. "Who is he?" she asked gently. Her son looked at her again, lips barely moving. "The man in the dark. He says he's been here before you." A chill swept through her entire body. She wanted to dismiss it as a dream, a child's story spun from shadows and fear. But the seriousness in his tone, the way his eyes shifted nervously toward the closet as if something unseen was watching, it felt too real. The closet stood open beside them, nothing more than shadows and silence. Yet, in that silence, she swore she could feel something else. Not noise exactly, but a presence. Her hand inched toward the doorframe, fighting the urge to slam it shut and lock it. But another part of her, the mother in her, knew that if she turned away now, if she ignored this, whatever it was would not stop. And as she sat frozen, her son whispered once more, barely audible. "He says he's waiting for you to." The words clung to her like ice. "He says he's waiting for you to." The mother swallowed hard, trying to steady her breath, but her chest ached with unease. Every instinct told her to pull her son close, to lock the door, to pretend none of this had ever happened. But another part of her knew that ignoring it was exactly what she had been doing for weeks. And now it was too late for that. Her son blinked, as though the trance was breaking, and rubbed his tired eyes. "Can I go back to sleep, Mom?" he whispered, almost like nothing unusual had happened at all. She forced a smile and tucked him in, smoothing the blanket over his small frame. But her hand lingered longer than usual, reluctant to let go. "Of course," she said softly. "I'll be right here." As he drifted off, his breathing evening out, she sat by the bed and stared at the closet. Shadows swayed with the faint breeze sneaking through the window, but her mind replayed his drawings, his whispers, his words. She thought back to her own childhood, the nights she had begged her mother to leave the light on. She remembered being afraid of the dark, terrified, in fact, but she had always been told to grow out of it, that there was nothing there. Was this just history repeating itself? Or was her son seeing something she had refused to acknowledge when she was his age? The next morning, she carried the unease with her. At work, she struggled to focus, her thoughts looping back to the closet. She wanted to confide in someone, her sister, maybe, or even the school counselor, but a deep shame held her back. What would they think? That she was feeding into a child's fantasy? That she wasn't strong enough to manage on her own? That shame clashed with something else, guilt. She hadn't been paying enough attention. She had been so wrapped up in bills, work deadlines, and the chaos of single motherhood that she missed the subtle warning signs. The empty stares at breakfast, the restless nights, the fear etched in her son's drawings. Now, when he needed her most, she wasn't sure if she could protect him, or even from what. That night, she set up a chair in the corner of his room. She told herself it was to reassure him, but the truth was she needed reassurance too. Hours dragged by, the quiet broken only by the ticking clock on the wall. Her eyelids grew heavy, but then she heard it. The whispers again. Her son stirred, his lips moving in the same hushed tone as before. But this time, she leaned closer, straining to hear. At first, she thought he was repeating nonsense, fragments of a dream. Then she realized he wasn't just talking. He was answering questions. She glanced at the closet. The door, which she knew she had shut tightly, was cracked open again. A chill ran through her veins. And then her son's words made her heart stop. "He says you used to hear him too." Her son's whispered words struck her like a thunderclap. "He says you used to hear him too." Her throat tightened. For a long moment, she couldn't breathe. Those nights from her own childhood, whispers she had buried, the terror she had forced herself to forget, came rushing back like a flood. She remembered lying awake, frozen in her bed, convinced someone was calling her name from the dark. She remembered the same closet door, always cracked open by morning, no matter how tightly she shut it. Had she imagined it all, or had she suppressed it? She shook her head, trying to ground herself. "Sweetheart," she whispered, brushing her son's hair gently. "What does he look like?" Her son's eyes flickered open. His gaze drifted to the closet. "He says you already know." Her stomach dropped. The air felt colder now, pressing against her skin. She glanced at the closet door, still slightly open, shadows spilling across the floor. Every instinct told her to slam it shut, to grab her son and run. But another voice in her head, the same stubborn determination that had carried her through every hardship, kept her rooted. If she ran now, she'd never stop running. The following day, exhaustion hung heavy on her. She tried to shake it off, going through her routine, packing lunch, dropping her son at school. But every shadow on the sidewalk, every whisper of wind against the window, made her flinch. Her mind was unraveling. By evening, she was resolved, no more ignoring. If something was happening, she had to face it. That night, she placed a baby monitor in his room. She sat in the living room, lights dimmed, the monitor cradled in her lap. Minutes dragged. Then, just past midnight, the faint sound came through, her son's soft, hushed voice. She turned up the volume, heart hammering. Yes, she remembers. I told you. Her skin prickled. He wasn't talking to himself. He was answering. She ran upstairs, careful not to make a sound, and stopped outside his door. Through the crack, she saw him again, sitting upright, his small figure bathed in moonlight. The closet was wide open now, and this time, she swore she saw movement inside, a darker shadow against the dark. Her breath caught. Her son tilted his head, listening intently. Then, in a voice not his own, low, raspy, chilling, he whispered back words that weren't his. She's listening. The mother stumbled back, her hand flying to her mouth. Her pulse raced so violently she thought she might collapse. She had seconds to decide. Confront it now, or step inside and see what she had tried to forget for decades. Her son turned toward the door, eyes glazed, his expression unreadable. Mom, he whispered softly. He wants to talk to you. Her son's voice was barely more than a whisper. He wants to talk to you. Her legs trembled, but she stepped into the room. The air was thick, charged like before a storm. She forced her voice steady, though her chest ached with dread. Who are you? She demanded, her eyes on the gaping closet. At first, silence. Then, her son's lips moved, but the voice that came out was not his. Low, gravelly, mocking. You forgot me. The words sliced through her, triggering memories she had buried deep. The whispers in her own childhood. The nights she begged her mother not to leave her alone. A closet door that never stayed shut. She had convinced herself it was all imagination. But it hadn't been. Her son's head tilted, his small frame too still, too rigid. He says you promised, he muttered. Her breath caught. Promised? No, she had never promised anything. Unless her childhood came rushing back. She remembered a night when, trembling beneath the covers, she whispered aloud to the dark. If you go away, I'll be good. I'll do anything. Had that been it? A child's desperate plea mistaken as a pact? Her knees weakened. Leave him out of this, she begged. He's just a boy. The shadow in the closet seemed to shift. Her son's face twisted, caught between his own features and something darker, like another presence pressing through him. His eyes, once glassy and distant, sharpened suddenly, looking right at her. Maybe he doesn't want to be left out, the voice said. Her heart sank. A new horror settled in her mind. What if her son wasn't just a victim? What if in some way he had invited it in, just as she had? She shook her head violently. No, you're lying. He's my son. The boy's body stiffened. His eyes welled with tears, but the voice continued, stronger now. He chose me, just like you did. The betrayal cut deeper than anything. For a split second, she saw her boy's real face, fearful, pleading, trapped. But then it was swallowed by something else. Her chest tightened with urgency. She could no longer tell whether she was fighting a spirit, her son's imagination, or something she herself had unleashed years ago. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just about the closet anymore. This was about whether she could save her child, or lose him to the same darkness that had haunted her all her life. And in that chilling moment, her son extended his hand toward the open closet, eyes locked on hers. Come with us, Mom. Her son's hand remained outstretched, trembling between invitation and command. Come with us, Mom. Her breath came in shallow bursts. She saw both her son and something else in his face, his wide, frightened eyes pleading for help, yet overlaid with that mocking grin, that voice that wasn't his. The shadow pulsed in the closet like it was alive, hungry, waiting. She shook her head, tears streaming. No, you're not taking him. The voice inside her son laughed, hollow and cruel. You already gave me yourself. He's just my inheritance. Her knees buckled. The memory she'd buried for decades hit her again. The night she whispered into the dark, begging it to go away, promising anything if it just left her alone. She had thought the fear vanished when the whispers stopped. But it hadn't vanished. It had waited. No, she cried, stepping closer, voice breaking. You can't have him. You can't have us. Her son's lips parted, but for the first time that night, she saw resistance in his eyes. The real him. He whispered faintly, Mom, help me. That was all she needed. She lunged forward, grabbing him, pulling him into her arms. The shadow swelled in fury, the closet door slamming against the wall with a thunderous crack. The room shook as the darkness surged outward, trying to engulf them both. She clutched her son tighter, heart pounding. "You don't belong here," she shouted into the dark. "Not with him. Not with me. We're done listening." The shadow hissed, the air so cold it seared her lungs. Her son screamed, but she held on, whispering into his ear, "You're stronger than this. Don't listen to him. Stay with me." For a moment, she thought the darkness would win. Then, slowly, her son's small arms wrapped around her, clutching back. His voice, his real voice, choked out, "I don't want you." The closet trembled violently. The shadow shrieked, a sound that rattled the walls, then sucked inward like a vacuum, pulling everything into itself. The closet door slammed shut so hard the room fell silent in an instant. Mother and son collapsed onto the bed, both gasping for breath, tears wetting their faces. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, haunted, but it was silence nonetheless. She stroked his hair, whispering, "It's over. It's over." But then her son, his voice small and fragile, asked the question that made her blood run cold. "Mom, if he's gone, why did he say he'd see you again?" Her arms tightened around him, her eyes darting to the closet. The door was shut, unmoving. Yet in the stillness, she realized something terrifying. Maybe she hadn't banished it at all. Maybe she had only reminded it where to find her. And somewhere deep inside, she remembered the words she'd whispered as a child. Words that had started everything. "If you go away, I'll be good. I'll do anything." The house felt different in the days that followed. Still, heavy, but the kind of stillness that comes after a storm. The kind where you don't yet know if the danger has truly passed or if it's only sleeping. Her son clung to her more often now, slipping his hand into hers in the quiet moments. Sometimes at night, she would wake to find him curled against her, afraid to be alone. She didn't push him away. She couldn't, because she, too, still felt the shadow of that night. Every creak in the hallway, every draft under the door, it all made her tense, waiting for the whisper that hadn't yet returned. But life carried on. Slowly, the ordinary sounds of morning, toast popping from the toaster, cartoons echoing from the TV, returned to fill the house. Those sounds mattered more than ever now, grounding her in the simple fact that they had survived. She knew she couldn't change the past. The whispers she had once answered as a child had marked her life forever. But now, looking at her son, she realized something important. Cycles only continue if you let them. Fear feeds on silence, on secrets, and she was done with both. One evening, as she tucked him into bed, he whispered, "Mom, what if it comes back?" Her heart clenched, but she met his eyes and said firmly, "If it comes back, it won't find us afraid. It will find us together." His shoulders relaxed just enough for sleep to take him. And for the first time since that night, she too felt the smallest spark of peace. Still, as she closed his bedroom door, her gaze flicked once more to the closet. The door was shut tight. It hadn't moved, but in her chest, she carried both warning and hope. That strength wasn't about pretending shadows didn't exist. It was about standing firm when they did. Maybe the darkness wasn't gone forever. Maybe it never would be. But now she knew something she hadn't before. It didn't matter how loud the whispers grew, as long as her voice and her son's spoke louder. And that was the promise she carried into tomorrow. So if you've ever felt the weight of something unseen, if you've ever faced shadows of your own, remember this. Courage doesn't mean being unafraid. It means refusing to let fear decide the ending of your story. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is whisper back, "You don't belong here anymore." If this story gave you chills, or made you think about the shadows we all face, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because stories like this remind us that even in the darkest rooms, light always has a chance to win.